Hi. Over the past, 18 months, but more than a decade really, I've been working on a family history, but it's become a little bit more than that. It's a creative project that's evolved over time, and I'm currently working on a draft with a view that it will be published as a book in time, hopefully in the not too distant future. The working title is Old Con, A True History of the Wild South. And I thought I might give a bit of a run of the first couple of chapters for your listening pleasure. Old Con, A True History of the Wild South, Chapter 1. I turn to you, old man, you and all the others. I turn to you because you're near, and because my mother taught me there's a place in life for talking to the dead. Then there's that other thing between us, the lingering memory of an agreement, one we struck the day I almost joined you. Go back and live to tell the stories, the telling weight of generations delivered in that line. So here I am, old man, pen in hand, ready to dig. Bend your attention to me, call up the invisible crowd. I'll listen for your whispering, gravelly antrim softened by the southern elements. Tell me what you will. I'll put it down as best I can, the way it ends and the way it begins. The cobbled together glory of our magnificent, poor origin. A true history of the wild South. At first, I see a stripling boy, buckled up with grief, and all the world spun wrong around him. His mother broken, his all too many siblings crying, neighbours coming in, half full of care, half eager to know enough to tell the story elsewhere. His older sister taking care of business in the storm. Tea for the searchers back from the bush. Thanks for the melancholy task. The men are awkward with their words. They stare down at their calloused hands, sip tea, mumble a promise of prayers. Then they drift into the surer business of remembering the man he was, the race he won, his mastery with an axe. They conjure places where they knew him, places easier than this heart-heavy veranda. The men fly through their talk, out in the bush, down in the mill, out on the river. Stories of timber and water and rock and mineral, stories of muscle and sweat and mateship and humour. One recollection sparks another, story upon story, until they can feel him there among them, present as ever. Crooked grin from ear to ear, his great roll of laughter surely about to come from just around some corner. The men are caught in the spell until the present intrudes again. Then there's the need for those other words that trip thick and awkward off their tongues. Sure to be missed. And all these mouths to feed are terrible business, and the state of that road a travesty. Someone has to pay. Now's not that time for that. Sure enough, but still. Truth lay beyond the murmur of their voices and the clatter of cups on saucers. There, through a door, through a ribbon of sunlight creeping between closed curtains, through the casual drift of dust motes, in a room that's silent and still as a midday church. A body is laid out on a bed. Mud and blood is yet to be washed away. His final stories told through fatal wounds. The lifeless answer to a horse come home with an empty saddle. The mortal remains of Jack Donnelly. Home for good and never to return. And outside, on the fringe of all that grievous spin and the stone-cold silence at its heart, that poor boy, Jim. His childhood split in two, 2 months shy of turning 8 and fatherless. You bring us to this boy, old man, you, his grandfather, the ghost of family past, yourself already 4 years dead and buried at Cockle Creek. Me, his grandson, the ghost of family future, 60 years away from being born. We sit and witness this moment, and there's nothing we can do for the boy. We can't hold him or dry away his tears. We can't console him through whispered reassurances. Time stirs a familial ache for what's beyond our reach. So we simply witness that moment, bound to scar young Jim for life. And then we're gone, just like his father, gone to search out a beginning to it all. I follow your lead, old man, across seas and through time, and into some sulphurous hell that I smell long before I see. A place so accustomed to its own stench that the odour is given a name, the Blackstaff nuisance. Named for the river whose typhus-clotted content gives rise to the smell. But the stench comes from more than one river. The Farset runs through the heart of the town. A river turned sewer, a problem paved over, a township built on a toxic foundation. Beale, Feast, Belfast, where the Blackstaff and Farset run into the Lagan, whose own noxious mud is exposed at low tide. A final note in a bouquet of stench. I follow you down cobblestone lanes west from the town centre and away from the Lagan, and as we move all your years fall away, until you're a boy with a spring in his step and a stone in one hand, just in case. Heading home to the pound, where the bellow of market day cattle and their desperate clattering hooves echo down Catholic streets. Home to the dense packed terrace houses brimful of mill workers and factory workers and their children, vulnerable to the flood and disease of the Blackstaff, loud with the sound of believers in Dan O'Connell, primed with the fiery hope for repeal, out with the Saxons, Ireland for the Irish, a powder keg suburb of Papists, pressed hard against Protestant Shankill and Sandy Row. Chapter 2. The bundled up man walks the streets with a length of bamboo in his hand. His breath clouds in the early morning air as he lifts the pole and flicks. Tap, tap, tapping. He keeps at the window until there's sign of life inside. A sleep crumpled face looking out. A dreary pair of blinking eyes, a tentative nod, a kindly wave. The worker awake for the day. Job done, the knocker-up moves on. House after house, street after street, some houses slower than others to stir, some already awake. Every morning the same routine, up and out before sunrise, and all for a pittance of income. No consolation, save for the trill of the song thrush, then the greater chorus of birdsong, calling the sun to rise over Belfast. Families together in bed struggle to disentangle blankets and limbs and rise from the undertow of sleep. It's harder after bad nights when young ones crack the dark with their bellowing, or old ones jolt everyone awake as they hack up the dregs from their work-scarred lungs. There's no escaping the nocturnal jostle. Family is a familiarity of bodies, an intrusion of hips and elbows, a restless kick, a sudden turn, the dig of a toe, a god-awful fart, all in together in sickness and health, all looking for that settled moment that leads to sleep. Then comes that tap, tap, tapping and the start of another day, all awake to the call of the mills and factories and the threat of the gatemen with their late come-on lockout, followed by a fine or unemployment. Then no food to put on the table. I catch sight of you in a crowd of workers trudging up the road, some half asleep, some murmuring. It's too early for banter, too early for much of anything at all. Ahead is a 12-hour day of grinding repetition, feeding the water and steam-driven beasts of industry, bowing in worship to the new god of productivity. Human cogs geared to metal machines. No hint of a bucolic island. Just the drudgery of a newborn modern world and the cradle-to-grave destiny of a wage slave. You're a 16-year-old boy, Cornelius Donnelly, flax dresser, one in a steady flow of workers, some as young as 8, passing through the gate and into the mill. You take your place by the mounds of flax, straw-like stuff that's lain in water pools to rot for months. You stoop to gather a bundle and haul it across to the crimper. The rolling drums crack the outer husks of the redded stems. The machine's weight and momentum is a constant danger, a thing of mindless, insatiable power. The work has already marked your body. You've lost half a finger, an involuntary flesh sacrifice to that new god of productivity. Another finger is bent out of shape. Bodies wear down before machines, but there are always more bodies to come. Cheap replacements from the constant breeding poor of the tenements and the incoming migrants from the country. You hold the cracked flax stems to the rotating blades of the scutcher. They pummel the bundles as you hold them in place. It reverberates through your arms and chest. Large pieces of husk fall to the floor. Fine dust fills the air. It covers your face. It gets in your eyes and into your mouth, inhaled through nostrils and down into your lungs. You stand in that dust till the flax is stripped bare and there's nothing left but a few supple strands. Those strands mark the end of your processing. Off they go to the world of spinners and doffers and weavers. Back you go to the next flax bundle, back to the crimper, back to the scutcher, back to the blades and the dust and the coughing, the stooping and rising, the backache and headache, the hunger and thirst, mind blurred to nothing, senses subdued, a body in motion, hour by hour, 6 until 6, one among many, meshed with machines, nothing but work till the gloaming. And somewhere an owner is weighing his profit, and somewhere fine linen is spread on a table, plenty to eat there, and plans for new meals. The market is ready, investors are happy, all part of the life of the town where you live, the pulse of the great Linenopolis.